Hey guys, welcome back to another episode here at Common Waters. I'm going to do something a little bit different here today. I'm going to go over some of the stuff that I keep on my boat for deep drop SoCal sword fishing. Go over some of the gear, some of the weights, the wind-ons, the bait, you know, all that kind of stuff. Let me preface this by saying I have not put one in the boat yet. They are the Unicorn, the Gladiator, the Purple Ghost, the Holy Grail, whatever you want to call them, but they are pretty much the top of most guys' bucket lists. I've been lucky enough to had a few bites, deep dropping here locally. My good friend Justin's had a few bites, and then I have also hooked one on a surface bait many years ago. That is kind of the ultimate, is catching one on the surface, baiting one of these fish that you see up. Most of the time they're up digesting, so they don't really eat a bait. You can cast on 10 fish, maybe get a bite. You can cast on 3 fish and get bit 3 times. You just never really know. But the new thing here in Southern California is deep drop. So we'll go over some of the gear, the rigging, the baits, all that kind of stuff. So if you've never done it before, or you're looking into getting into it, or just looking for some more knowledge, this would be a great video. I've talked to a lot of guys on the East Coast, a few guys that kind of pioneered this quite a long time ago via Facebook Messenger. They've been very forthcoming with information, which is great. They like to see the sport grow out here. Yeah, they've been nice enough to share a lot of information with me. I pretty much live and breathe this stuff now. Non-stop reading, non-stop learning. It's ever evolving here. So yeah, let's get into it, guys. So first thing is, this is my swordfish bag. This is everything that I need if I want to go fish, other than, you know, the bigger stuff, gas, bait, etc. This here, one of my buddies brought me back from the East Coast. This is a Hoagie. I'll just show you guys this real quick because it's kind of a big piece of equipment. This is a Hoagie Lures. I don't think a single person has caught one here in Southern California yet on an artificial, so I'm definitely gonna drag this thing around this season. This is like a 14-inch bait. It's all UV. It's, you know, rigged just like you would rig a normal strip bait or something like that, except being so big, Hoagie actually has it rigged on 2 stainless 7691s and some 300-pound mono. Like I said, I keep this in the boat. Haven't had a chance to drop it yet, but I'm definitely going to fish it this season. You know, not going to have giant squid eat it or anything like that. So that's one thing that I keep just because. All right, so let's get into it here, guys. This is my bag. This is actually a tool bag I got from Home Depot, but super thick padded handles. We're carrying a lot of lead around. I don't keep this stuff in my boat all the time because I never know what I'm going to be doing, and this is a real specific dedicated thing. So I have a clear 3700 box here, and this thing is full of giant snap swivels. I don't really use very often. They're, you know, giant ball bearing swivels, 350 to 500 pound ball bearing Sampos are what I like. I have extra long line clips for my weights and buoys, things like that nature. I've got my wire sleeves for crimping leaders, crimps for every size mono, everything from 100 pound up to 400 pound. I've got tons of rubber bands and little hair bands that I actually use for my daughter's hair. These work great for securing your lights, and I'll show you guys that on a leader, but these work awesome and they're super cheap, so I just grab a big handful, throw them in here. Tons and tons of LP diamond lights. So I've got everything from green. I do have some blues, and I have some discos. But the only thing I don't really fish is red, being that it dissipates in the water column. Tons and tons and tons of rigging needles for stitching baits, all kinds of different sizes and different thicknesses. And then I've got a ton of different hooks, everything from J hooks. So these are Owner Jobu 11-0s. And I've got some 7691s. And then I've also got some large, I think these are mustads, I'm not 100% positive. But these are like 12-0 circles. This is what I'm gonna run on my buoy rod this year, is I'm gonna run the circle hook on the buoy rod. So that's what I keep in this box. Pretty much everything I need if I need to put on lights. I mean, everything is there. Pair of crimpers, gotta have these for leaders, etc. These fit right to the sleeve here. Awesome. Keep a pair of heavy duty cutters for wire, mono, anything, but these are super heavy cutters. I have no idea who makes them because they are rusted, but they are rusted to where they are now smooth. But this bag works out great for this because everything slides in nice and tight. We'll pull some of this stuff out, show you guys all this kind of stuff. All right, so this here is a C.E. Smith drop-in swiveling rod holder to keep on the boat. Yeah, so this will go in your rod holder, drops down, and then you can spin your rod while it's in the rod holder and swing around and fight your fish. These are great if you don't want to do new rod holders in your boat and actually install permanent swiveling rod holders, which are very expensive. And they're great, but I mean, I use my boat for tons of other things, so I don't always want that to be the case. This is a new Rapala line counter, a new digital line counter that I found online a week or two ago. I've been trying to find a good solution outside of the Crystal, which is about 200 bucks. This seems to be working great so far. I've tested it on the boat. I have tested it here in the garage. Everything so far, this thing has worked out awesome. So if you don't have your line marked, you know, like on your tip rod, you don't have any buoy loops or anything like that, and you're not running metered braid, this has worked awesome so far. They're about 40 bucks. Hopefully it lasts a season. If it does, to me, cheap investment. So check this thing out. Like I said, I think this is gonna be a great rod or line counter. All right, so these bags here, this is a bag full of IGFA 130-pound wind-ons. I make all my own wind-on leaders. I can customize the length, the mono, everything that I want. But this is a bag of 430-pound IGFA Mamoy wind-on leaders. The reason I made these is because coming up, we've got the second annual IGFA SoCal Swordfish Tournament, and we do need to abide by IGFA rules for that. Normally I'd like to fish 2 or 250 pound, but we can't do that. So I made all these up ready to go. This here is a spare buoy wind-on. So for the buoy rod, this has got a loop on each end, and then right here in the middle, we have a loop for our buoy. This is a floss wax loop here on our buoy with some 300-pound mono. This is specifically for fishing on the buoy rod. I have one of these on my 50 right here, set at about, I think 900 feet, maybe 800 feet. I'd have to look at the reel. But I always carry an extra one around just because you never know when you're gonna get tangled, snagged, just, you know. Definitely always have a good insurance on the boat. You're spending all this money and all this time. And then here is another bag full of wind-ons. So this here is 100 feet of 250-pound mono, another wind-on. This would be non-IGFA compliant, but we're not always fishing IGFA tournaments. So I like to have these on the boat because they're easy enough to change out. These all already have a floss wax loop on there for your weight as well. So I always have a couple of these on the boat as well. Like I said, there's 4 or 5 more wind-ons in here. I always keep these with me. This guy here, and then one of the last things is going to be lead. There's a lot of pouches in this bag, which is awesome here on the side, that fit all of my lead sinkers. So I have my lead, so here's a 5. This is 400-pound Iser Mono, and I have this 6 or 7 feet. I think we're right about 6 feet. But I have everything crimped on here, ready to go, and then with a long line clip. So I can take this and clip it on, and I'm ready to go. I have this at about 6 feet, so when it comes up to the boat and I need to remove my weight, I can grab it, and it's long enough that it's not going to tangle with my main line or with my my wind knot when I'm dropping. But then I can also lift it up and over the rail. If you try and do a 10-foot one or something like that, 1, you don't need it that long, and 2, when you're trying to remove it, then you got to do 2 or 3 hands and get it over the rail. It's not really efficient. Like I said, I think these are set to about 5 or 6 feet. I'd have to unloop it and see, but that makes it really easy to unclip it, 1 motion into the boat, and you're done, and your weight's off. So I have a bunch of 5s, which, since we don't have a lot of current here in Southern California, not near what the guys do, like in Florida and on the East Coast, those guys will run up to 15 pounds of lead. We don't have to do that. But I have some lighter 3-pounders, which I haven't found it necessary to use yet. 5 seems to kind of be where I like to be. I also have a few bigger stick weights. I always keep a couple of these just in case. This is 6 pounds of lead or steel, I don't know. I actually pulled this out of a rubbish bunch of junk, and it actually had a hole, so we just crimped on some 300-pound cable. And I'll go ahead and crimp a leader on there, and I'll have a 6-pound weight. And then here is a 7-pound weight, the same thing. We just drilled the hole, crimped that on there. Your weights can be anything, guys. A lot of guys like to use rebar because it's real cost effective. But I just went ahead and I ran a whole bunch of red duct tape here on the bottom, and then electrical tape up. 1, so when these drop into my boat and I set them down, I'm not injuring my boat and dinging up my deck at all. And then 2, by wrapping all of these in electrical tape, I'll be able to tell if when I get a bite, if the fish was actually hitting the bait, or if for some reason he was swatting the lead, which does happen. Guys have pulled up lead weights that actually had a huge bend in them. So this will make it very easy to tell whether they're actually hitting the lead or hitting the bait. So we've got those, some lead. I've also got some big lights that I clip on. These go typically up near my weight. I run anywhere from 2 to 4 lights, kind of just whatever I'm feeling like that day, to be perfectly honest. These are good to like 1,500 feet, 1,800 feet. They run on AA. I also keep a couple extra batteries in here just so you guys know, but these come pre-rigged with a long line clip to just clip right on. Gonna keep those in there. That back in there. Line counter goes in there. And then here's just an old nylon bag that I had laying around. But one of the most important things, skirts. I have a wide variety of colors. These are all full length. So these are larger skirts. These are like 12-inch skirts, I think. But these are all glow. I do have a few that have already been trimmed. These came off baits that I've dropped or gotten a bite on. Save the skirts, of course, so these are a little bit more trimmed. But glow, orange. Orange seems to be a really popular color. I think it's because those fish are probably down there feeding on rockfish. But orange and black. I think it's really preference. The guys on the East Coast catch their fish on everything from glow to orange to blue. It doesn't seem to make a huge difference. But they also fish a lot of strip baits versus what we fish here. So typically a different fishery. But you know, these are kind of my preferred colors. But these fit in here. And then my wind-ons go here. And then this box slides right into here. And I can go. This line can go down a little bit farther, and then I'm ready to go. So I can take this whole bag that weighs probably 40 to 50 pounds with the lead in it. But I have big handles, I have a shoulder strap, it's everything I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave this out, and we will go ahead and set that guy down. Let's talk about rods. So this here is one of my preferred setups. When I go, I typically have 3 rods. I'm fishing 2, and I always have a 3rd ready to go. So this here is a Talica 50. I have this thing packed full of 65-pound J-Braid X8. And then on top of that is I have a 130-pound IGFA wind-on. And I think this one is 75 feet is what I measured this one at and cut this one to. The rod is a custom 7-foot double XH. I have turbos all the way through, X-Wrap grip, and then what's really cool about this rod is I've got turbo guides, but my tip is a Bigfoot AFCO roller tip, since that's what we're looking at most of the time. And then as you guys can see here, I have this with 3 lights just strung on my line all together. This is crimped to a 500-pound ball bearing swivel with a sleeve protector as well. So what we do, guys, is all 3 of these lights are just strung up on our line. So this rod here, guys, this is set up right now as my tip rod. So what your tip rod is what you're fishing straight up and down, essentially, no buoy. The buoy rod is gonna have a buoy loop in it, little bit different style, but I have a buoy here, I'll show you guys. So this is set up as the tip rod. I have 3 lights on this guy. When we get out to go fish, what I would do is I'd then pull a bait out, take that, I'd crimp my bait right onto here. Prefer not to use snap swivels. Just with the hook on there, one, it's a little extra thing for the leader to get looped and tangled on. I know there's heavier snap swivels. I do bring some with me, but still, crimping it really is the ideal way to go. But you would have your leader on, you'd have your bait. We get out there, we drop our baits, and you're gonna slowly let that out behind the boat. So as you're letting that out behind the boat, let's go ahead and put this in freeze. Perfect. All right, so my first one, what I like to do is I like to go about 15 feet from the bait. So we got our bait going behind the boat. What you do is you take one of these little rubber bands and you are just going to take it, wrap it around your light. You can loop your light around 3, 4, 5 times. Boom. Your light is now secure. So it's not going to slide, it's not going to go anywhere. Fiber strips loops around real fast. We let out another 20, 25 feet of line. And then boom, loop another one on. Get out another 20, 25 feet of line, loop our last one on. Then what you're going to do, you're going to get all the way down to here. And then here we go. So boom. So now what you see coming through here is your wax loop. Here's our wax loop. This is what we would then take. You've got your weight, about 5 to 6 feet of line onto here. We would then take our wax loop, take this, clip that on there. The whole point of this piece right here on your wax loop, guys, is purely to keep this, if it ever slides, from sliding down your line. That is what that is for. So we're clipping right onto our main line, which gives a lot of extra protection to the leader itself. This is so it doesn't slide. So you go ahead and take your line, drop your weight off the side of the boat, and boom, there we go. I have my weight about 10 feet from my line on, or from my loop. So here is my leader. This goes right up to my Spectra. This then goes to my loop. And that loop goes right to this bimini twist. And this bimini is looped with a cat's paw right to my hollow loop. All this does is pull itself tighter and tighter, guys. So it's a seamless connection. Now, like let's say we got bit. So we get bit, you're worried about your lights, you got your fish, we're coming up, your wireman goes ahead, and your wireman's gonna, boom, we're gonna come over to here, we're gonna get our weight off. Now remember, in the IGFA stuff, guys, your wireman can't touch your leader at all. So it's really good to practice at home. Put your rod in the rod holder. Have someone, go ahead and be pulling on the line to make it tight like a fish, and have your wireman practice on and off with that clip, because he can touch the clip to remove the weight, but he can't hold your line and then remove the weight. If you're not fishing IGFA, grab the line, make it easy on yourself. So we're coming up, we're getting close. Now we're worried as we get in closer to our lights. You don't have to break these. So that's what's really nice about the rubber bands. See this? I've already got two. All you do, guys, just wind through. Just wind through. Either the rubber band's gonna break, or with enough pressure they'll slide. You don't have to worry about pulling them, breaking them, anything like that. So, as you guys can see, this rod here, this rod is soft enough that we're gonna be able to detect a real soft bite. But at the same time, this rod has plenty of backbone. We're not fishing super heavy drag on these things. I'm fishing about 15 pounds. You also got to think all the additional line that you guys have out is creating drag on the fish as well. So take that into account. If you got 1,000 feet of line out, that's a lot of extra drag as well. These fish do tend to have softer mouths. The guys that fish heavy drag do seem to pull hooks. But there's two ways of thinking. You either put a lot of drag and try and kill that fish in a short amount of time and risk pulling a hook, or you play the fish too soft and you risk wearing a hole in his mouth. But this rod is, if we're going up and down with the waves, it's all a cadence. It's a cadence. It's just soft enough where I can see that little. Sometimes that's all you're gonna see, guys. Sometimes you might not see a big on the line. It could just be something as subtle as going with the waves and then just dink, dink. That's it. Or maybe you're going down with the waves, but the next wave comes and the rod never goes down. That fish is eating the bait and he's swimming up, so he's taking the pressure off of the weight. But anyway, so that's my tip rod, guys. Sleeve back in there. Over here, this is currently what I'm using for my reel for my buoy setup. Definitely using a different rod. I have this rod set up for trolling marlin right now. This is a big Marlin Magic plunger head. But this is a 50, that's been 2-speeded with a topless frame from Cal. I've got my wind on, then to a hollow loop, and then Spectra out to about 800 feet, and then at 800 feet I have a buoy loop with, your buoy loop is then looped into your reel. So I had to put another hollow loop, loop it through, and then another hollow loop coming off the reel, and loop that through. So that is what we would use to fish the buoy. So by doing this, it's great because what you can do is we got a buoy setup. By utilizing a tip rod and a buoy rod at the same time, you can fish two rods. So you can cover a little more water and obviously double your chances of getting a bite. This here is my buoy. Everybody's setups may be a little different. Again, we don't have near as much current as the East Coast guys. So this here is about 5 feet of PVC. I have a bright neon green flag. I went ahead and put some electrical tape here and here and then zip tied the flag to it. This helps to keep it from sliding. I have reflective tape up and down. I have a standard 11-inch lobster buoy or crab float with reflective tape around that as well. And then through my PVC and through my cap, I actually have this with some 400-pound mono crimped to a long line clip. And then this is going on, and this is crimped to this loop, locked onto here. And then we have this down to another long line clip. So essentially you would do the same thing as you're doing with the tip rod, guys. You would let that out, get that bait way out, and then we come to 800 feet. You're gonna see that loop on there. You would then clip this directly onto that loop, same way, and slowly let it out. I typically will get my buoy rod out first, or get it going out first. If you have two people, you can do them at the same time, but you need to stagger them a little bit so they don't get tangled. There are a lot of guys that will put their tip rod out first and then float their buoy rod. It's totally up to you. Every boat drives and drifts differently, so you're gonna have to figure out what works best for you. It works best for me if I get my buoy rod out first, personally, but I've kind of really perfected that over the past season and a half, 2 seasons, and actually longer than that, I think 3 seasons now. But I rarely get tangled now, maybe once or twice a season, but I get my buoy rod out there about halfway to where I want it, and then I start dropping my tip rod. So this is on about 4 feet. So what'll happen is your bait is down there, guys, on this buoy rod, and your buoy's floating out there, and a lot of your bites on the buoy rod are gonna be like this. Because what happens is you've got your 5 to 7 pounds of lead pulling down on your buoy, plus some current. What happens is a lot of the time on the buoy setup, for whatever reason, those fish will eat the bait and they swim up or they swim towards it, and they take the pressure off that weight and all this slack, and your buoy falls over. So you'll be sitting back there, your buoy's gonna be 200-300 yards behind the boat, and you're just gonna watch it fall over. That to me is where the circle hook is gonna come in handy. That's what I'm gonna fish a lot this season. There's a lot of opinions both ways, but I think the circle hook, especially when that fish eats it on the leader, has 75 feet of leader swimming up, when it comes to that weight's gonna help pull that hook down to the fish's jaw. So that's the buoy. That's my buoy setup. That's my buoy reel. Let's talk a few other things right now. How about bait? So let's grab some baits. All right, let's grab some baits. Try to get the chip freezer right there. So I have 4 different bags. So one, I vacuum seal all my baits. I have a relatively inexpensive vacuum sealer, but I vacuum seal all my baits. That is definitely one of the keys, I think. Fresh, good bait. So this is a rig squid. This one is on a 11.0 Mustad 7691 with some 300 or 400 pound leader. I run 5 to 6 feet of leader on my baits. These are all hand stitched. I did every one of these baits. There's definitely a learning curve, but it's relatively easy to do once you get the hang of it. Just take your time. This has got a blue skirt on it, as you can see. This here is from, I can't think of the company, Deep Purple, something like that. But this is rigged on a giant circle hook. This is on the same thing, looks like about 300 pound mono to a swivel. What I'll end up doing is this, I'll cut off and I'll crimp this directly to my swivel, my tip, or my buoy rod. We have a glow bead here stopping it. This is to a circle hook, and this is actually zip tied. There's 2 or 3 zip ties in here, just in the head of this bait, and then the head itself is stitched on. So this is a real fast way to rig a bait. Seems semi-durable so far. This here is a giant squid, or a bigger squid anyway, that I picked up from the market. I typically will buy one almost every time I see them, and then vacuum them, throw them in the freezer, because you never know when you're going to be able to find bait or not find bait. But this is ready to be rigged. There's no hook in this at all. This is probably a 2 pound squid. This is a big bait, as you guys can see. But that one's ready to be rigged, so I can just cross that and rig that on the water quickly with the circle hook method, or stitch it. And then this here is a bait that I rigged up last season. Real popular on the East Coast. This is an eel. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but this here is an eel. The black and orange skirt, same thing, 400 pound mono. This one I have with a 11.0 Jobu. This bait ends up being probably 16 inches long. It swims great in the water. I did drop this bait once last season, and it does have an awesome swimming motion, even in low current. No bites on it, but it's stitched all the way back to the tail, so it's going to be insanely durable. And that's one of the nice things, guys, with like the eels, the belly strips. The squid sometimes kind of depends on what the bait looks like, but I can drop this bait over and over. I prefer not to freeze and refreeze, but you know, you could definitely freeze a bait and drop it back down. I like to typically bring 4, 5, 6 baits with me when I go. I don't really want to spend time on the water rigging, so I'll just cut the leaders and crip on a new one quickly if I get a bite. But as far as bait goes, squid is our preferred thing here, of course, but belly strips from Dorado, tuna, barracuda, there's tons of rigging videos. I'll do one soon. I just don't have any defrosted baits right now. So that's it when it comes to bait. Freshness is key. Like I said, you want to have nice, clean baits. I mean, these baits are white, very little pink in these. They're very, very fresh baits. Let me put these back in the freezer and then let's talk a few more things. Yeah, so I just got myself a nice big stand-up freezer. Sorry, one of the big benefits to that is the fact that I have enough room that I can freeze baits and freeze leaders and lay them flat. I don't want to roll stuff up. I like to freeze everything very flat, very clean. So next on the list, guys, is gaffs and safety. I don't have them in my bag because I have not pulled them out of my other bag yet. But I always have a pair of leather gloves or heavy mechanics gloves, something on there. Their bill can be extremely sharp. These fish are not something to play with. But I do have 2 gaffs. This here is an 8-foot aluminum gaff. Now whether you go aluminum, bamboo, it's all your own preference. But this is an 8-footer. Now when you go to 8 feet, you have a hook regulation for IGFA. You can't be anything bigger than a 4-inch gaff. So that's exactly why this is a very long gaff, but a little bit smaller hook. This is my secondary gaff, I guess is what you would call it. But I got this on 15 feet of rope. I do not tie this off to the cleat of my boat. This is going to get a clip on it and will be stuck on a small buoy ball. You know, 11 to 13 inch ball. Do not put this on a cleat. If you gaff a big fish and he just goes wild, goes down, you don't want to 1, spin your boat, 2, rip the cleat off your boat. We've all seen Jaws. It is entirely possible. These fish are very powerful. And even when you think they're dead, they're not even close a lot of the times. So this is a 4-inch hook on an 8-foot gaff. This is my secondary gaff, like I said. And then here is the primary. This is a 6-foot gaff with an 8-inch hook. This is an 8-inch hook with a very large barb, all welded, stainless. This is a very, very big, very heavy gaff. What's really cool about these guys, I think these are all precision gaffs, if I remember correctly. What I like about them, and it's a really small thing, but it makes a huge difference, these actually have like a gimbal butt on these gaffs, which is great when they sit in your rod pullers. They're not spinning around or anything like that. So, but this is a 6-footer, which means I can have as big a hook as I need. But if you're gonna gaff one of these things, guys, when it comes to be that time, get something with some meat. You wanna stick that thing in the shoulder, and you wanna get a good chunk of that fish. You know, if you try and stick them with a 3-inch or a 4-inch gaff, probably gonna rip through it. It happens quite often, actually. But yeah, so again, they're very dangerous fish, guys. They're not something to joke about or fool around with. There are guys that get hurt all the time, unfortunately. But big gaff, like I said, I don't recommend going by yourself, even though I do. IGFA fishing, I'm definitely gonna have a partner with me. Justin, my buddy's probably gonna fish with me, or I'll fish on his skiff. But it should be a great tournament. I definitely want to have 2 people, especially just when you get up to leader, getting your weight off, and then safely gaffing your fish, getting your fish in the boat. Not to mention if you have boat problems or something like that. So, but this is the heavy hardware. So yeah, that is it. I think we've covered just about everything. Like I said, we've gone over rods, we've gone over reels, minimum 50 size reel. We can discuss line again real quick. I run 65 pound on my tip rod. On my buoy rod, I'm gonna order a new Makaira 50. And I'm probably gonna spool that with 80 just because of the extra drag from the buoy. And then I might actually end up putting 2 loops in there. I'll probably put one at 750 and probably one at 950 or 800 and 950, something in that range. Everything I do is hand crank. I don't do any electric reels. They are prohibited in the IGFA for anything other than retrieving a bait. So if you want to fish an electric reel, Seaboard 1200 is a great way to go. Daiwa MP3000 is a great way to go. A little bit slower reel. The top of the line would be an LP. Most of the serious guys on the East Coast use the LPs. I don't find them necessary here. Those guys have to fish down deep on the bottom in 1,800 to 2,500 feet. We don't seem to need to fish deeper than 1,500 or 1,800. Like I said, so I hand crank everything. It's exhausting, but to me, I think it's going to be a little more rewarding. To each his own, though. I don't knock guys that fish electric whatsoever. But yeah, I use 65 pound mainly because of the drag. If you have 1,000 or 1,200 feet of line, that's a lot less drag on your line. I like a little bit longer rod. Like I said, this is a 7-footer. I do run a bent butt for my tip rod, which I'll grab real quick just to show you. So this is a bent butt style rod. This is a Pac Bay bent butt. I think it's a number 4, but I don't remember. But anyway, this is a Daiwa Marine Power. This is a 7-1 XF, and then this has a roller tip on it as well. This is a swiveling roller tip, which is kind of nice if you're fishing the rod holder. Turbo guides all the way through. This is what I use for my buoy rod. This is what I'm going to end up putting the new Makaira on, more than likely. But it's nice fishing it in the rod holder because it actually gives you quite an angle. You're not vertical on it, puts you a little more horizontal, or parallel with the water, depending on the degree of the rod holders in your boat. So, like I said, I typically have 3 rods with me. But yeah, I mean, we've covered wind-ons, we've covered line, reels. We said minimum 50s, just because you need the line capacity. Hooks, circle hooks, J hooks, it's totally up to you. There's definitely preferences both ways. Lead, I start at 5 pounds. I'll go all the way up to 8 if I need it, but it's nice. Like I said, the weights that I have are a lot of scrap stuff that I found. So I have 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, kind of everything in between. We've covered bait, buoy rod, it's an exciting fishery, guys. You can fish everywhere from 4 to 5 miles off the beach out to all the way out to Clemente. There's guys that catch fish on the 9. There's guys that have caught fish out on the 43. You really got to find them. You want to look for that deep scattering layer, which is going to be moving throughout the day with the sun. It seems like we'll see it anywhere from 500 feet all the way down to 1,000 feet. So that's where your electronics really come in handy. To do this properly, you're going to need a fish finder capable of transmitting at least 1,000 watts, or 2,000 to 3,000 if you're going to get really serious, but minimum 1,000 watts. Finding that deep scattering layer is key. That's microorganisms, it's little shrimp, plankton, bait fish, squid, hake, whiting. It could be a million different things, but it is a layer that moves up and down with the sun. You'll be able to see it on your graph as kind of fuzz or haze, but it's very definitive. But we like to fish either right at that or just below that. The swordfish are going to hunt in that. We don't fish on the bottom here. There's guys that have tried it with very minimal or limited success. You do have a chance of catching an Opa. You have a chance of catching a big eye thresher. Doing the deep drop thing, you really don't catch too many sharks. You're fishing way below what they travel at. I haven't heard of any tuna caught on the deep drop here, at least guys that are short fishing. It seems like on the East Coast they catch some pomfrets, they get some escolar, they get some tuna once in a while. Doesn't seem like we get quite the variety. Now I don't know if that's because there's less guys fishing or we're fishing different areas, what the deal is. Look on your topographic maps, focus on canyon walls, real vertical canyon walls. Look at sea surface temps, find the clean water in the bait. Where the clean water hits the dirty water, you're gonna get a natural highway of bait and stuff. You're gonna have to put some time in, put in some work, but if you do it, you should be rewarded. If you guys have any questions, definitely please reach out to me, comment on the video, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I am in Southern California, so this is where I dedicate my time. I'm more than happy to share whatever knowledge that I have with you guys. I just want to see everybody catch fish. I think it's awesome. I think this deep drop thing is something new. There's a lot of guys that are getting into it. I think it's really important that everybody be courteous to each other. When you have a buoy rod out, give the guys some room. That buoy could be 300 yards behind his boat, and he's got a leader that's another 100 feet long. Give guys a half a mile, or if you're working together, you can work closer. But, like I said, give each other some room. Be courteous and be respectful of each other. Share information. We're all out here for one common goal. I'm not talking about sharing honey holes or anything, but hey man, if you caught a fish on an eel, let me know you caught a fish on an eel, or tell the guys you caught fish on an eel. It's something different. I am forthcoming with everything, so if you guys want to know anything, like I said, reach out to me and ask me. I'm happy to share. If you guys want to see any other videos, or if there's any other information you need, like I said, comment. I'll answer everything. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Please subscribe to the channel. This is something that I'm just doing for fun and trying to get more information out there for everybody. So the more people that subscribe and the more comments I get, the more I want to share information. So hopefully the next video that I can post is going to be me with a swordfish on the deck. But until that time, guys, thanks for tuning in to Common Waters. Have a good one.